the first time I heard Fight Fire with Fire, it was about 84, I think it was, 83 or 84, and it was on Tom's Friday Rock Show. And I was just like the acoustic part, and then the classic into the... It was just like, what is this? It's brilliant. I did the same thing with Accept, Fast as a Shark, the first time I heard that. It was about the same time. I just thought it was the heaviest thing I'd ever heard, you know.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to episode 203 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, Aaron Aedy of the band Paradise Lost returns to the podcast to talk about Icon 30, the re-recording of their seminal record Icon that they put out back in 1993. We spoke all about that. We ended up talking an awful lot about Shades of God, which is a Paradise Lost record I've been stuck on for really most of my life. We shared some memories from the glory days of London's live music scene and much more. If you caught his last appearance on Into the Necrosphere, you know he's a great guy, and we had a great time catching up. It's going to be coming your way very shortly, but before we get to that, Axioma are a band out of Cleveland, Ohio. They've just put out a new EP called Primal Descent. I think it absolutely rips, and I believe that you will agree. To prove my point, this is a song called Spectre in the Code. You just heard a track called Spectre in the Code by Axioma. It's off their new EP, Primal Descent, and that is available right now on Bandcamp. As per usual, I will post a link in the description to the podcast, and you can go there, check it out, buy yourself some music. Let the Axioma gang know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. One day, instead of saying Bandcamp, we're going to be saying AMPWALL. Make sure that you guys are continuing to sign up for the AMPWALL mailing list. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the episode I did with Chris Krieg of Woe. AMPWALL is his baby, and he has personally asked me to thank all of you for the support and the love that you've shown the idea. A great way to build resilience in the underground, and I'm really, really excited to see where that goes. My friends, if you're new to the podcast and you like what you've heard so far, but you're not yet subscribed, then do me a little favor and grab the closest barbed wire wrapped baseball bat and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, or wherever else you consume your podcasts from. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And of course, if you would like to show your support in money terms, then head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store, and in exchange for a couple of your ducats, you can pick yourself out a t-shirt or a hoodie or anything else that catches your fancy. You'll also be aware that I am a member of the podcasting Illuminati, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, and we kick your week off every Monday with another installment of Horrorwolf 666, hosted by Brandon Legion. Every Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere. Every Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill brings you another edition of his long-running podcast. I almost said wrong-running podcast. Everything Went Black. He returns every Thursday with another thrilling installment of Necromaniacs alongside his co-hosts Sheriff Mike Scandado and Professor Jeff Kashid. On a Thursday and a Sunday, the Sinister Minister Carl Hikara brings you Soul Knocks. And then finally, unbound by routine and regulation, the great Cheyenne of the band Trivax drops an episode of Iblis Manifestations when you least expect it. So make sure that you are following us all. Thank you to all of those that already do. Great to see the overlap in the audience. And of course, we regularly feature on each other's podcasts as well. So if you happen to enjoy us all, you get to enjoy us together from time to time, which is great also. Make sure that you don't go anywhere after I have finished my conversation with Aaron. This week I am doing, as promised, a review roundup of everything from the new Strigoi EP through to the new Suffocation record, the new album by Fuming Mouth, and we're also going to be talking about Gravesend's Gowanna's Death Stomp. And then it is on to the weekly news rant. This week we are rounding up for judgment new singles by Exocrine, Cognizance, Vitriol, Cloak, King, and others. And I'm also going to be dissecting the new Ministry single to determine whether there are any signs of life in that creaky old fossil of a once great band. Before we get to any of that, though, you have got a treat coming your way, so sit back and enjoy as I welcome back to the podcast for the second time, most definitely not the last time, Aaron Aedy of Paradise Lost. Legion, just a quick one before we get started properly. For whatever insane reason, StreamYard decided to sabotage old Jackson and changed my default microphone setting from the very spiffing Shure microphone that you see me use normally to my camera microphone. And so for the interview with Aaron, my voice quality is going to be a little bit compromised. You can still hear what I'm saying. You should still be able to enjoy the conversation as usual, but just wanted to put that out there and apologize. I will be back to business as usual next week. Now sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode. So I think I want to open up with sharing something for me personally, very exciting with you. When you guys play Shepherd's Bush on December the 1st, I'm going to be taking my daughter to her first ever concert.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
She's only 9 years old, but she's grown up with Paradise Lost. And so
I used to have her, at
Wow.
the age of 3 or at the age of 4, I sit in the car like, Meadow, what do you want to listen to? And she goes, can I have some Paradise Lost, please?
Wow.
So her first ever show she's going to see will be on December the 1st. She'll see Paradise Lost, and she'll see My Dying Bride in support, which I'm also excited
Cool.
about.
Well, we better be good then.
Can't disappoint her. I was going to ask you though. I mean, as a seasoned young man yourself, what was the first show that you ever saw? Can you remember? Can you remember back to those heady days?
Yeah. It was September the 11th, 1986. In fact, 4 out of 5 Paradise Lost members were there. It was Metallica on the Master of Puppets tour about 10 days or so before Cliff sadly passed away. But yeah, and what a great night. So technically the first band I saw was Anthrax. They were doing the Spreading the Disease sort of promotion at the time. And of course, Madhouse sounded brilliant. I love Scott Ian's rhythm sound, and James Hetfield, 2 heroes of mine for rhythm sounds. So, especially Scott Ian on the Stormtroopers of Death album. What a sound!
Well, I think that the whole vibe on that Stormtroopers of Death album, and especially when they did the live at Budokan, I love that kind of anarchic feeling, like something is just going to pop off. And I mean, it kind of did when you see the show, because you've got Billy, clubbing people in the front row, and he's
jumping off the PA and stuff.
Yeah, just crazy. I mean, I've always loved that.
And he's not a small lad either, so I imagine that was quite scary for the people in the audience when he was jumping off and stuff. But yeah,
when he stands up when he's on that PA and he's got that mask on and he points down to the audience and he's indicating he's going to jump. Yeah, I think if I were at the bottom, I may potentially have tried to make way.
Yeah. I think time to go to the bar at that moment, I think.
But that's
they finished the European tour actually. This must be about 15 years ago or something like that. They did like another tour, SOD, and they played. I think they played Milk twice because it was Scott's favourite. but he came on stage with the March of the Sword playing, and he walks on stage with it was the London LA2, the Lower Astoria. R.I.P. Astoria. I miss that venue. Great venue. But I went to see and Billy Milano walks out with a big carrier bag and he's throwing tea bags at the audience. And he said, "We've been saving these up the whole tour for you, limey motherfuckers." Something like that. And I was just laughing my head off. He just throwing tea bags out to the crowd. I thought I was laughing my head off. But I mean, Metallica 86, September the 11th. I've still got the ticket. In fact, still got it.
That's incredible. But and more incredible, you saw one of the last ever Cliff Burton shows.
Oh man, it was incredible. He even kicked my hand off his wah-wah pedal because there's no barrier. So you're resting on the stage like that. And I was like, I was tapping along on his car, and he kicked me hand off his wah-wah pedal because obviously, I didn't know. I was just excited. I was like 16 and super excited. But I didn't get to see a show before that. My mum wouldn't let me go to see a gig before I left school, which was really annoying because I missed out on like the Number of the Beast tour, Power Slave tour, original Motorhead lineup. Just about I would have seen. Oh man,
just
terrible.
Taking a gander at the set list for that show. I mean, that was pretty serious. They started with Master of Puppets, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Sanitarium, Ride the Lightning. Then Cliff came on, did Anesthesia, Whiplash, The Thing That Should Not Be, Fate of Black, Seek and Destroy, Creeping Death. I mean, that is
how good does that sound?
You must have been. I was about to say you must have been in seventh heaven.
Oh yeah, it sounded incredible. I mean, I remember on the Friday Rock show, Tommy Vance and my good friend Tony Wilson, whose birthday party I'm going to be going to in the new year. He's the first time I heard Fight Fire with Fire. It was about 84, I think it was 83 or 84, and it was on Tom's Friday Rock show. And I was just like the acoustic part, and then the classic into the. It was just like, what is this? It's brilliant. I did the same thing with Accept's Fast as a Shark the first time I heard that. It was about the same time. I just thought it was the heaviest thing I'd ever heard, with the hi-dee, hi-do, hi-da. And I'm a big Accept fan as well. So.
The thing that should not be for the first time, and that
man, what a riff!
Crushingly heavy, like, and for
so
me,
heavy.
like the most sinister sounding part of that song was the guitar solo. Like, I remember hearing the guitar solo, and like you were used to, Kirk doing something quite harmonic, quite tuneful, and then all of a sudden you've got this fucking crazy, like, you just rack it. And it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's like I watched. I think it was the Music Is Win channel. He did a thing. What's the heaviest riff of all time? And he was watching videos of people being asked, and it came up as pretty much Sad But True, which is a great heavy riff. But the thing, I think the one you mentioned is probably better. Actually, I think on reflection, heavier. No, I good say, that first riff.
Well, when it comes to Metallica, for me, like the heaviest riffs they've ever done. Probably the thing that should not be, and For Whom the Bell Tolls. Like, I just think For Whom the Bell Tolls, when it kicks in, it's
crushing.
So fucking cool.
When it kicks in, it's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, you think you're getting AC/DC, and then all of a sudden Metallica come on.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, was this the night that you decided music is going to be my future, my destiny?
Do you know what? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, even when we had the first 2 albums out, we were still working, and it was still like something you'd love to do, but you never dreamed that it's going to happen. I mean, remember when we got hands, and it's like, wow, we're on vinyl. Super exciting, but you never really thought, especially, you would never have guessed that 35 years later we'd still be here, even in the 90s, you never thought, you didn't think it was going to last more than another 10 years or something at best, So yeah, it's a constant surprise, constantly humbling, that's for sure. And I think one thing we've got is we've really learned to appreciate, the fortunate position we're in, especially, nowadays. I mean, I don't know, it must be so difficult for bands to sort of even think about going professional these days, because I mean, it's the income streams are diabolical, really. When you think about it, it's like, you owe your record company, if you use a record company, loads of money, or you've got to hope that what independent service you use, because you're not going to make any money from streaming, so you have to hopefully sell things like vinyl and t-shirts at your shows. But yeah, that's one thing I'll say. The Metallica show that we went to, it was £4 in to see Metallica and Anthrax. Those were the days.
I moved to the UK in 2002, and even then, like I look at some of my old ticket stubs, and I saw Rammstein for £16. I saw, reasonably big bands for £12, £13. You look at it now, it's like, Rammstein is you're not paying any less than about £90 for that ticket.
Nowadays, 25. Yeah, the £25-30 is like minimum, really, these days. For most bands,
£25 gets you entry at the local pub for bands you've never heard of before. So,
well, £25 if you're lucky gets you 4 pints.
Well, in London it gets you 2. Tell me, you mentioned you were working on Lost Paradise and Gothic. What were you doing for a living before you were able to give that up?
I did an apprenticeship. I was an electronics engineer in engineering. So I was wiring up the cabinets for 25-meter length CNC machines, basically. So it was everything from like 5 volts up to 415 volts, and I got to design. By the end of my apprenticeship, I was being able to design and wire the cabinets myself. It wasn't like a prefab thing. But the last 2 machines I did were for NASA, British Aerospace, and Sperry Vickers. They were the last 3. They were the last 3 machines. I did them on my own. I just after my apprenticeship finished. But yeah, this is a mad thing with how the UK is with Metric and Imperial. It was a 25-meter long bed that had to be accurate to 0.008 of an inch.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it was so they could do like airplane wings and things like that on it. But yeah, that was I really enjoyed it because I got to learn welding, brazing, oxyacetylene cutting, sheet metal fabrication, lathes, milling machines. It was really good. I really enjoyed the apprenticeship, to be honest. It was really good.
At what point did you guys, was it sort of a collective decision that you took as a band to say, like, we're giving up our day jobs now to focus on the band full time, or was it just sort of something that gradually started to happen?
It sort of all tied in with signing for Music for Nations and taking on our management at the same time. We did both we basically said to Andy, who's still our manager all these years later, get us a good record deal and we'll sign a management contract at the same time. And we signed both on the same day, which was December 91. And that was the day we thought, right, okay, we're going to give ourselves a small wage every week and make sure that we haven't got a job to get in the way of, touring or anything like that going forward. But yeah, it was quite hard. I mean, I was on the dole for about 6 or 8 months, and something I never wanted to do because I've brought up in that culture where you earn your money, But it was quite hard. I was doing jobs in between, and the band wasn't paying a lot of money at that point until we signed the management. But yeah, it was kind of, I was doing work for Manpower and stuff like that, like odd jobs and stuff, which was quite interesting. Going to wire up 4 tills in a pub in Wakefield in the morning. Got to get there for 8 a.m, which was a pain in the ass from where I lived in Hebden Bridge at the time. Get there, it literally, because they needed literally all it was like 4 times 3 wires, but they needed a qualified electrician to do it. So you do that, and then landlord would be like, "You fancy a pint and a game of pool?" So you'd be finished work in about 20 minutes. You get paid for a full day, but then you'd be like playing pool and having a couple of pints with landlord, and then get home on the train by lunchtime. Mental. But I mean, it was quite a good job at times.
Did that background in electronics, did you find any application for that playing music?
It makes it easier to repair things. I've forgotten a lot of stuff, to be honest, but no, I've got funnily enough, about a year and a half ago, I got myself a really nice soldering iron, which I've been after for a bit. And I've actually got 2 or 3, 4 guitars here that I want to completely rewire and do that. So it's only a simple thing, but I do quite like doing all that myself. My live guitars are 2 ESPs that I've been touring with for the last 8 years or so. They're due a service, so after the Icon shows, I'm going to bring them home. They need new pots and jacks and stuff, and maybe one of the pickups needs rewinding. It looks battered. So, but yeah, no, it's just little bits and bobs. I mean, I did build a distortion pedal, which is over there, was part of my apprenticeship. I even hand drew the circuit board, for it's all in copper, but I hand drew it. I even signed it with my name and put the date on it. It was January 89, I think I made it, and that's written on the circuit board in copper. But yeah, it's not something I completely dove back into. I got so busy with the band, especially once we got to like 93 onwards, Icon, all the way up to like, there was about 6 or 7 years where we weren't home very much, and we were touring, or if we were home, we were putting a new album together. So it was quite mental, really. But yeah, I've kind of got back into it a lot more now. I've got a mixing desk I want to repair as well. So, but yeah, it's just a bit of a hobby, really.
Yeah, I asked because I'm a big fan of high-end audio and hi-fi, and so I know a couple of folks that have an interest in that, and they get deep into building their own amplifiers, all sorts of crazy stuff like that. I had Attila from AM on the other day, and he was talking about creating his own hi-fi cable. He's been working for years, so I was just wondering whether you'd had any dabblings in any of the technical side of whether it's
no, but I do actually. I really care about things. Yeah, I mean these NS10s, these speakers, they're proper old NS10s, and I've got like an old 70s amplifier down there. But I paid a guy who used to work for in the 70s, and he rewired it with all better quality components and everything. But I mean and it sounds amazing. And I did actually, I'm really nerdy with stuff like that. Just going between the cable, because everyone says with NS10s, just stick mains flex basically. So it's like 2.5 mil copper wire, but you just use mains flex, so it's cheap. And I did that. I also had some really good quality cable, and I bought 2 lots of 3 meters of silver cable, which cost me about £100 actually, just for like 6 meters of cable. And the silver one, sorry, I had them on banana plugs. I was ABing for it because I get really nerdy with stuff like that. And the silver one, and I thought at the end of the day, well, that's your representation of what you're recording and listening to. So it's got to be right. People shouldn't scrimp on things. And plus, I live in a small flat with neighbours, so I can't make a lot of noise. That's why the NS10s are perfect, really. And I've got a great pair. Well, actually, I'm a bit of a headphone collector, but my 12-year-old HD 650 Sennheisers are pretty much my go-to when I'm recording. So, like I did the Icon 30 album, sat here, I did my guitars here, and then sent them on to Greg, and they went to Gomez. But yeah, that was all done with like just HD 650s with sound reference ID on to sort of give them a balanced EQ. But yeah, no, I'm nerdy. I'll research stuff to the nth degree. I can't help it.
I'm exactly the same. And when it comes to cables, I mean, I've experimented with so many cables in my hi-fi setup. What I have found in the past, though, it might just be the equipment that I have. I find silver can sometimes make the sound a bit bright. I've got a power cable that's in now. Yeah. That's mostly silver, and that actually seems to work quite well. I've got copper, like foundation is copper for the speaker cables.
Yeah.
But the power cable is silver, and I that seems to kind of strike a nice balance between being bright but equally also kind of being.
I found copper. Copper sort of brings forward a lot of mids. I think you get a bit more definition in the top and the bottom end with silver, whereas copper is quite good and dirty in the upper mids. For like guitars sound quite nasty with copper. Yeah. It just when I'm using this for like recording guitars and getting guitar sounds, but especially like electronic music sounds better with silver. It just does. Maybe it just scoops the sound a little, like, if you put Kraftwerk on or something, it sounds better with silver than it will with copper because it's not trying to find those mids that Kraftwerk have already mixed perfectly, or Jean-Michel Jarre,
So I want to just take a quick detour past Shades of God before we get to Icon, because Shades of God for me was a personally incredibly important record. I spoke to Greg about this when I had him on the podcast as well. I got Gothic and Shades of God at exactly the same time. I think Shades of God to me was important because I found the lyrics really spoke to me, probably more than almost any record I'd heard up to that time. What I always kind of I guess what was always a mystery to me initially was that shift in sound from Gothic to Shades of God, because it's pretty significant. Like, I would almost argue in some ways it's a bigger departure from Gothic to Shades of God than it is from Shades of God to Icon, even though I think the conventional opinion is probably
totally. I mean, there's a couple of things that did that. One, we were getting more time to spend seriously writing. Because Greg had a full-time job. Everyone had jobs. I think Greg was still working when he was writing Gothic, and I think he'd managed to leave by the time we were writing Shades of God, I think. So, there was more time to concentrate on what it was. Plus, at that age, I mean, between the age of, if you think about it, we were 18 when we started. Oh, well, some of us were 17, but I was 18 and Steve was 18. The rest of the guys were sort of 17, 18-ish, you know what I mean? But then how your music expands that you listen to between the ages of 18 and 20, 21, you all of a sudden listen to a lot more things, and there's more influence in that regard. And I think with Shades of God, I think it was partly that, more time to spend on it and just to do something different, because the one thing we did quite a lot, especially in the 90s, is when we did a record, all of a sudden there were a lot of bands that sounded like it, so we didn't want to sound like that anymore. So we tried to evolve, almost keep ahead of the pack to a certain degree. But all of a sudden, even though we only toured and did shows, I think, for about 6 months for Gothic, and then we wrote Shades of God, so it was quite a quick turnaround as well, because we were in the studio, I think it was March 92. But that's the other part of it as well. We had a producer, which helped. It wasn't as rushed. I mean, with Gothic, we did that so fast. It was unreal. Whereas with Shades of God, I had a producer and a larger studio, I'll say. I don't want to be down on Academy, because Academy made loads of great stuff for such a small studio. It was amazing, really. Keith, who ran it, was such a star. But yeah, having like a large studio with an Eve desk and a producer brought that bit more out of us, I think, as much as well. Plus we had, we were living in the studio for like 4 weeks, which was an adventure in itself. There's a lot of good times, a lot of good memories from that recording period. But yeah, it was the first time with a producer, first time so many things, and I think we were learning and developing at the same time and expanding our horizons as people and musicians, really. And at that point, we were trying to get a lot more serious about it and trying to improve ourselves as well,
You mentioned an interesting point there about not wanting to sound like everybody else, but I think a lot of folks, especially younger people, I don't actually think they necessarily have an appreciation for how different the metal culture was at the time. And what I mean by that is, and you'll immediately nod in recognition when I say this.
Yeah.
They used to get so bent out of shape at anything they perceived to be sellout, band toning down. There was no room for experimentation. If you know.
Oh no! I mean, we even had people when we brought Lost Paradise out. There were people saying we'd sold out after the first demo. Even then.
I was going to say,
you
guys were. I mean, you almost sort of flagrantly went into that. Like, we don't give a fuck. We're just going to put out whatever we want.
Well, that's always. Well, this is the thing with. I mean, we were all friends before Paradise Lost. I mean, Greg was in the next classroom to me when I was 11. Tud, the original drummer, sat behind me at school from the age of 11. Nick, I met BMXing in like 1982, 83, something like that. We met BMXing, but both like metal, so we got on instantly. So we were friends before, and when we started the band, it was to make the music we wanted to hear, and that's not changed. I mean, still now it's like we make it for ourselves. We're just quite lucky that some other people seem to like it as well, and that's always been the ethos. There was a point, especially around track times, where I remember one person, someone in PR or someone like that, sort of suggested, it's like, Draconian Times is brilliant, make another one. It's like, no. That's the last thing we want to do. We've done that. We want to move forward. We want to try new things. We want to push ourselves. Because at the end of the day as well, after touring it for 2 years, you need to listen to something fresh and something a bit different, because it's okay saying, all right, that album is brilliant, but when you've played it every night on and off for like a year and a half, it's like, I need to listen to something different, But yeah, we're our own biggest critics. I mean, the amount of stuff we go through before we get to the songs that you guys hear, I mean, Nick and Greg especially, I mean, they're each other's harshest critic, And it's same with us. It's like when we get it, it's like brilliant or shit. But no, but you know what I mean? It's like but we can be that harsh with each other, because we everyone knows that we all care. It's what we love. I mean, I love playing live because I'm playing songs that I love, because I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love the music. And sharing it with other people who are enjoying it as well is the best thing in the world for me. I love that.
I will make this observation about you. I've seen you guys live quite a few times now. I've rarely seen someone who looks to be so in their element as you do when you're on stage. Like you literally look like you're enjoying every fucking second of it. And everyone who's been with me has always pointed it out as well. It's like, that dude loves every moment of what's happening on the stage right now.
I always say that if the audience enjoys it half as much as I do, they've had a good night. But yeah, it's like, it's like I never think about what I'm going to do movement wise on stage. It's just wherever the music takes me, that's it. And it's hard not to enjoy it. It's you're doing something that you love, playing something that you love, to people who enjoy it as well. I mean, it's like it's like one big, fun time for everybody, and it's like you can't not. I mean, I go on stage and I still feel like I'm 18. I mean, my back might tell me I'm 80 in the morning, but it's still, for me, it's still very much like it keeps you young, I think, as well. Well, up here anyway, you know. But yeah, no, I still love it.
I mean, you guys are still road dogs without a shadow of a doubt. Do you like how have you changed your approach to taking care of yourself, making sure you're up and ready to roll the next day, or day after, whenever you guys play a show? How are you managing just your health and your well-being on the road now versus what you were doing? Because I would assume.
I mean, you obviously try to make sure you eat well. You try to get enough sleep. You don't always. I'm somebody who can't sleep more than 5.5, 6 hours. Nick's the same. It's like I just wake up automatically. It's like, but I feel all right. So my body's like saying, all right, 100% charge, off you go, kind of thing. But yeah, you try to eat better. I mean, we're not drinking as much as we used to, because I mean, hangovers stopped being like a one-day affair a long time ago. It's quite easy
to the late 30s. Like when I was 38 years old, that's when it hit me the first time. It's like, okay,
late 30s, you start feeling it.
Over by lunchtime, like this is a 2-3 day thing now.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you're a bit more careful with things like that. I mean, I've had a couple of injuries this year, so I'm actually out of shape at the minute, and I hate it. Whereas normally I do a lot of cycling and things like that, but I haven't done a lot this year, and I've actually got quite a bad shoulder injury at the minute. But it doesn't stop me playing guitar, 'cause it's this arm, and this one just goes like that and just goes like that, so it's all right. But yeah, no, I snapped the ligament in my third fret finger just after Christmas. So I'd literally only just been able to play. It was sort of April, I think, when we did Icon 30. And I'd literally just got the splint off. I'd had a splint on for 3.5 months. I couldn't even play guitar properly until literally about a week and a half before I had to record the album. So it was like, ow, ow, ow. Because I'd lost all my calluses and everything. So strings were hurting and stuff. But yeah, no, it was.
How did you manage to pick up that?
Do you know what? The most ridiculous, getting something out of the bottom of a box. That's it. It was like a box full of packing foam, all the the peanut kind of stuff. And I had to get some out of the bottom, and I thrust my hand down to get it, and it just felt like a jarring thing. It didn't hurt or anything. I got up the next day, and my fingertip was off at an angle like that, but it didn't hurt. I thought it was dislocated. I was going to go to try and click it in. Glad I didn't, because it was actually the ligament had snapped. So literally, I just had to wear a splint on it, not use it, which is annoying as well because I'm left-handed. So I had to do loads of things right-handed. I'm sort of ambidextrous, but there's a bunch of things like scissors, things like tin openers, especially stuff like that, where unless you're a left-hander, you don't know the pain growing up.
My sister is left-handed. I fortunately am not, but it's I get where you're coming from. I'm reasonably ambidextrous as well, so
yeah.
But whenever I need to do so, there's just certain stuff that when I have to do it with my left hand, the brain-body connection just disappears. Just circling back to Shades of God, the one thing, obviously, one of the biggest changes is Nick's vocal style changing quite a bit. Like, it was still rough, but he started to inject in some of that melody. I know you mentioned you guys were making music you want a year, but was there ever any kind of self-awareness from Nick, or any self-consciousness, actually, maybe you could say, from the band as to, okay, how are folks that were into Lost Paradise and Gothic going to take that change? Because again, back in the early 90s, that sort of step away from what you were doing before.
Yeah, you kind of find as well a couple of things, that you get people who are growing up same time as you, and their music taste has developed. So we've had some people that say, but there are some people who just like the early stuff, and that's fine. It's like I don't like everything by some bands as well. So there's certain periods I like in some bands. It's usually tied into when you're a teenager or a particularly good time and a memory, So I mean, yeah, that's fine. But we were really pleasing ourselves. It was like, yeah, people might not like it, but new people might. But at the end of the day, I mean, the philosophy has always been, we've got to be honest to ourselves. We've got to enjoy it first, or else what's the point? People can tell if your heart isn't in it. If it's not come from the soul. I mean, that's what I say about the music industry. If I'd have stayed as a programmer or an engineer, I'd have made a lot more money. But in the music industry, you get currency for the soul, and it's quite a different thing, really.
Well, and you also highlight, I think, something that's incredibly true and incredibly important. That aspect of when a band isn't doing something. This is what I've always liked so much about you guys. And for me, as a fan, I was on board for every single change. But I didn't realize it at the time, and as I've grown older, it's become more apparent to me. I think it's exactly because of what you just said. You can get a sense of this is the band's authentic artistic expression at the time, and that's whether you're talking about Host, whether you're talking about Symbolic, whether you're talking about Shades of God, or whether you're talking about Lost Paradise. It's the same principle applies. That's what you guys wanted to express at the time, and so you did it, and that's why it kind of, to me as a fan, it feels convincing because of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and things like, even when we started experimenting with 1 Second, which until we re-released Draconian Times, 1 Second was our best-selling album. Until we re-released Drac Times 20 or whatever it was. But the hosting, do you know what? When you're growing up and developing as a person, sometimes you have to throw yourself curveballs to find out where you want to go back to. If we hadn't have done that, it'd have always been a niggling thing. Whereas now, I think Paradise Lost is just Paradise Lost. That we do Paradise Lost things. And now, if Greg or Nick want to go off at a curveball, they'll do a side project instead. I think that's where they've come to realize they can do that and just develop Paradise Lost in its own way without feeling like they have to bring something else in it to make it interesting for themselves in a different way. But it's kind of when you're growing up, you're always learning to find out who you are. I mean, I always say that I think once you start to understand who you are and actually feel comfortable being yourself with other people, that's when you met the truest friends and met the best relationships, I think. Because I remember in my 20s, there was there's sometimes where you try to be what you think the other people want you to be a bit too much. And not that I did it that much, but I think most people do, because you think, I've got to seem this cool because I want to fit in with these people or whatever. Or I've got to like this because I want to fit in with I really like these people. And then once you get to your 30s, you go, do you know what? I'll just be me and see what lands. I think as much as anything, musically, once you feel comfortable in your life, I think then you can music also becomes what you want to do again more, I think, as well. So, but yeah, no, it's life reflects art. It's like people say, do you regret doing this album or do you regret doing that? And it's like, no, because every album and everything we've done is the step we needed to get to where we are today. So you should never regret anything in life, obviously, unless it's very nasty, but anything.
I could throw a name out right now, not of you guys, but of another band.
No. But it's like own your mistakes. Don't think failure is a bad thing. It's a way to learn. All the best experiments and scientific discoveries of half of them come through failing on one thing and finding something by accident. So life is very similar to that in a lot of ways as well.
Well, the thing for me is when if I look at some big name bands and you go back over their catalogs. I mean, I use Slayer as an example. Slayer, to me, their weaker records are the records where they're patently playing to a brand. They're playing to brand Slayer rather than playing Slayer music. And I think if you guys had repeated yourself after Draconian Times, for example, or you just decided, okay, we're going to go down this 1 second route now for the next,
I think we'd have quit because we wouldn't have enjoyed it. I think that's still the same thing. The minute we don't enjoy it anymore, we'll stop. Because what's the point? Otherwise. Funnily enough, I've got a picture of me with Dave Lombardo and Kerry King in May 1987, because I went to see him on the Rain in Blood tour, and I managed to get a picture with him afterwards. And I'm like the crazy 17-year-old fan going, doing that kind of thing. Total fanboy. I've still got it, the photo. It's great, that. But yeah, no slamming Slayer back then. Bloody hell, amazing.
No,
absolutely incredible.
With those, by the way, was that a London Astoria show that you saw?
No, that was Manchester. I was, I've been living in London for 23 years now, but. Yeah, I grew up in Yorkshire. I mean, the Metallica show that I went to was Bradford St George's Hall, which is one of the venues we're playing on the Icon. shows this December. We're playing Bradford St George's Hall. We played there on the Draconian Times tour as well, but that's the only 2 times we've played it. But that's where we used to go. I went to see Iron Maiden there. I went to see Bon Jovi there with my girlfriend. But yeah, you see, New Model Army, one of my favourite shows ever, was a Thunder and Consolation tour. That was it there as well. So yeah, brilliant. Metallica a couple of times there with Danzig supporting and stuff like that. But yeah, good.
There's good to on Danzig. People are going to start tuning out because there's a lot of Danzig love on this podcast. So
well, we played 2 shows with him just before the lockdowns. We played 2 shows, one in Glasgow, Barrowlands, and one at the Brixton Academy. And Barrowlands, I went out into the crowd to watch it because I love early Danzig especially. But went out to watch him, absolutely on fire. Brilliant. I was like, fucking hell, he still got it. Johnny was killing it on the drums and that. It was like absolutely brilliant. And then the next night in London, he'd obviously blown a bit of a fuse the night before because he was good, but not quite as good. But it was still really good. But yeah, they were a good couple of shows, those actually.
The first couple on that show. That was when they did How the Gods Kill. In its entirety. Yeah.
It's really good.
I remember that very well.
Yeah.
Was it How the Gods Kill or was it Danzig 2? Either way, I remember you guys played.
They were playing a lot of early stuff. I just remember that. So I don't know. But yeah, it was great. It was almost like a best of. It was great. Every song was great. They didn't play Can't Speak Love, which is a shame. But that's a hard one to do.
There are a lot of Danzig deep cuts that I'm a big fan of, and I wish that somehow, somewhere, he would just. I don't care what edge of the planet I have to travel to see it, but just do one Sam Hain only show. Like
that'd be pretty cool.
Songs like The Shift and The Howl and All Murder, All Guts, All Fun, and Unholy Passion live, I would fucking that would be my. As far as live shows are concerned, I don't think I'd ever need to see a show again after that. That would be.
I missed one a few years ago. Mine was Candlemas they reformed with an original singer who was still in. They reformed and they did the whole of Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus in Stockholm. And I was away on tour. I couldn't fly. I was actually tempted to fly for it. I really want to see that. But I went to see King Diamond doing the Abigail album. Brilliant.
Yeah, I saw that too. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I actually lost my voice. I was singing all the way through. No, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, because they slotted in some Merciful Fate songs in the middle. Mm-hmm. They did like Come to the Sabbath and that. And it was just like, yes. And then obviously we played with him doing the Merciful Fate set a couple of times over the last few years. It sounds great. That sounds absolutely amazing. Yeah. And I'm friends with a woman who plays Grandma as well. So there we go.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
One last comment on Shades of God just before we start talking about Icon. One request that I have: if you ever want to make me an extraordinarily happy man, please reintroduce Your Hand in Mine to the set. It is such a great song, and it doesn't get the love that it deserves, as far as I'm concerned.
That was the first time Nick sang normally on a track. Was that song? Yeah. And I was like, bloody hell, Nick can sing. It's like, and then once he'd done that, he gave him the confidence to try more and more. Because I mean, especially when you're singing, it's quite difficult because you can blow your throat out. It's like not like a guitar player who snaps a string and he can get another guitar. He's very careful with his voice. That's one thing he's learned over the years, is to look after his well-being and his voice a bit better. But yeah, that was the first time we'd heard him sing normally, and I thought that was like brilliant when I first heard Your Hand in Mine. I thought it was like, it's like Dead Can Dance or something.
It's an incredible song, and I can listen to it. I mean, it's like a great film where you can watch it millions of times and you'll always find something in it that is. Yeah,
I don't think we've played it live since '92. I think '92 was the last time we played it live, to be honest. You're more likely to get Mortals Watch the Day or something like that.
So if we move on then to Icon, I mean, again, a change in direction and sound from from Chains of God. And it was obviously also, it was a much more, I think, commercially impactful record when it came out. Like, it was genuinely the first major step outside of, being, part of the underground. How did it, talk to me a little bit about the writing and recording of that record? Like, what are some of your memories of it?
Writing that, do you know what? It was just seeing it come together in the rehearsal room. I mean, we used to sort of still work on the songs in the rehearsal room back then. And we just, I don't know, it seemed like Nick and Greg had got a little bit more of a handle on song structure. I think that's one thing they learned after Shades of God with songs like As I Die and stuff like that. It was like, all right, well, you could do songs in a structure more, like a shorter length and make them more catchy kind of thing. But still have songs where you've got loads of riffs in, I think that was one thing that developed most was actually song structure and an understanding of song structure. And don't just throw 20 riffs at it in a row and then call it the end. And then don't know how to end, so just go fade it out. Things like that. It's the one thing that every band struggles with is how do you end the song? Do you know what I mean? But I think it was more learning about song structure as much as improving as players. I mean, Greg's lead playing took a big step up, I think, on Icon. I was more comfortable doing 4 tracks of rhythm, which is what I did on Shades of God. That was the first time I'd ever done it. Instead of it just being like 1 track of rhythm and Greg played the other, his side stuff. So to doing 4 tracks of rhythm was quite a steep learning curve and a discipline that I got on Shades of God. And then coming to Icon, I was a lot more comfortable with that. But yeah, the recording of Icon, it was just, another great chance to get drunk with Simon in the evenings and have him headbanging with a pint of bitter on the desk while you're listening to the day's work. It was great fun to do. I mean, there was one morning I got up in the morning, came down for breakfast, and Morton Hackett from our was sat at the table. So I had breakfast with Morton Hackett one morning. I got caught by one of the Goss brothers I was coming out of the bathroom in just a towel. I'd had a bath, and it was him with Pepsi from Pepsi and Shirley. And he was like, "Oh man, sorry to interrupt." I said, "Mate, I don't wear a shirt on stage. Everybody's seen this." And he just laughed, and he was really nice, but super apologetic. But yeah, it's kind of, all those sort of sessions times and Jacob's studio in Surrey. I met Stiff Little Fingers, which is one of my favourite bands as well, in there. That was great. Me and Simon arrived late and the off license was shut, and they said, "We've got loads of beer, have some of ours." So they were absolutely lovely. But yeah, the recording process was great, and we would nip down into the town and go for some pints in the evenings, because you could still go for a bunch of pints in the evening, get up in the morning and feel all right when you're like 23. So it was all right.
You were going to record songs as cheerful as Colossal Rains and Weeping Words. So if you had a bit of a hangover, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It helps bring out some of the misery.
Yeah.
Like when it was all done and you were listening back to the final mix, did you have a sense that like this maybe is a record that's going to drive us forward as a band, or take us to...
I mean, we kind of, well, we were excited by it because it was like I keep saying, we write it for ourselves, and when we heard it, Simon obviously just makes sure everyone's got a beer and cranks the big speakers up in the studio, and everything sounds ace through those. But we were like, God, this sounds ace, We were like, you're like kids listening to it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's super exciting. But watching it come together is not something you get to do as much now, because sometimes you're recording remotely and stuff like that. So, or you don't get to stay in the studio because it's too expensive for everybody. I used to stay for the entire duration of all the album sessions. I used to love watching it come together. But I haven't done that for quite a few years now because it just gets too expensive to stay places. But yeah, it's kind of at the time, yeah, we were very excited about it, and we knew we came out of the studio. I think Nick and Greg went off to do a press trip, and me and Steve were going for press later in the week, but we ended up staying in London. And I think the record company sorted out. I went to see Voivod at the Marquee, one of my favourite bands of all time. So that was brilliant. And we went to see Pearl Jam. It was like 3 days before V's, the second album, came out. They were playing Brixton Academy. And that sounded great. And to this day, I'll say that their performance of Black that night is still one of the most moving things I've ever seen live. Not as good as Ecstasy of Gold with Ennio Morricone conducting at Hammersmith Odeon, but yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, I mean, I was never the biggest fan of Pearl Jam, but they were for a period of time, like they kind of became dad rock, and then but the early days there was still something reasonably edgy about them, and their live shows were very energetic.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I like every song by them, but I love the song Black, and it was kind of the thing. The record company took us, and me and Steve went. I think Steve quite liked them at the time. But yeah, it was a great show. I mean, you can't go past that. Whether you like a band or not, if it's a great show, it's a great show. It sounded immense.
I've had this conversation with Alan from Primordial, and I said to him, one of the most impressive things I've seen this year. As much as I never really liked the guy's music, but I was at the Newbury races with my fiance, for a work do of hers, and afterwards they had Tom Jones playing, and I was watching this. Thinking I was going to fucking hate it. Watching it, going, this dude is 83 years old, and listen to how he sounds. It's like, it's unreal. It's like I could believe it.
I'm quite jealous. I'd love to have seen that.
But the energy in his performance, the way he moves around on stage, and the thing is, you can hear in his voice that he's singing live. It's not. There's no backing tracks. There's no nothing. It's just him. But I was like, this is seriously impressive. He did a couple of Leonard Cohen covers, a couple of Bob Dylan covers and stuff. The hits and things like I Can Take or Leave. But some of those songs were really, really, really good. So the show is a good show. It was actually Glenn Danzig that said that to me as well. It's like, good music is good music. It doesn't matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I went to see actually Brixton Academy is quite good for bottom end in mixers, as long as you know where to stand in the room. But I saw Tool there on their fourth album tour or something like that. I went to see Tool there, and that was the best bass end mix. I can't remember. I don't know who the sound guy was, but it sounded immense because it's also a room where you could get the bass very wrong, but it's got a beautiful shape for getting the bottom end, and the Tool sounded incredible that night as well. When I went to see them there, some venues just have that magic,
Well, the Astoria had that. I'm with you.
That was my favourite place to play in London, and I'm absolutely heartbroken. I walked past where it was on Tuesday because I had an appointment up the road, and I was a bit early, so I went down and I also went to have a look at Denmark Street, where all the guitar shops were. Over half of them have gone. And the guitar shops that were on Charing Cross Road, like Macari's and that, they've gone. The guitar shop that was next to the Crowbar, which is obviously gone, that's gone as well. And it was just like there's about 5 guitar shops left, where there used to be about 12 or something. And it's just they've been trying to sanitize that part of Soho for years, but everyone rang on. But the pandemic has just meant that they can go like people can't afford their rates. They put the rates up and then they get them out, and then they put some generic shop in there, and it's quite heartbreaking. I went down there on Tuesday and saw that, but where the Astoria was as well, it's just like I love that venue so much.
I totally agree with you, and it used to be such an exciting place to be. Like I remember if there were shows. I mean, some nights you had a show at the LA2 at the Mean Fiddler. And then you had a show at the Astoria, and there would be this real buzz about the place because they'd be queuing, drinking cider and drinking beer and stuff from 1 in the afternoon. It was Slayer probably from 8 in the morning. So it's like, and then people would get like super excited just about being able to go in. I remember queuing at the Mean Fiddler, and Glenn Benton just literally walked by. We were going to go see Deerside. And this guy just walks by with this bottle of Jack Daniels in his hands, and I'm looking at it, was like, is that Glenn Benton? It's like, yes, it is. It's like, and he's just like walking by with this grin, like looking at the crowd that's about to come and watch him play. But definitely a part of London's soul was lost when those 2 venues were closed, I felt.
Yeah. I went to went to a lot of gigs. Once I moved to London, I went to shows at the Astoria all the time. But whenever we played it, though, I always loved it. We have had some amazing shows in there. But yeah, I went to see when Slayer first decided to do Raining Blood in its entirety again, which I'd obviously pretty much seen in '87, but they did it again there. And another one that I really enjoyed was Typo Negative played there once, and they opened up with "I Know You're Fucking Someone Else," the infidelity of whatever off the first album. And it was funny just watching all the goth girls go, "What? What's this?" They were waiting for Black Number One or something. But it was like, and that's my favourite Typo song, and they opened with it. And he was like Jackie Mason in between songs. It was hilarious. He was a funny guy, Peter. It was.
I was there for the Slayer show because I remember I hadn't gotten the memo that they were going to do Rain and Blood. So they started playing Angel of Death, and I was like, this is what they normally finish with. Like, how can the show be done this soon?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, it goes into the next song and the next song, and I'm like, oh my God, just fucking absolutely floored. I had one of those moments like you had with Cliff as well, where Jeff Hanneman was looking down at me when they were doing Altar of Sacrifice, because it was right in front. And as they get to the break, it's like, enter to the realm of Satan. I'm like screaming it at the top of my lungs, and Jeff just looked down at me, just like smiled and just nodded his head. It's like, and I was there for the Typo. It may have been the same Typo show that you saw as well, because they did. Yeah. They started with like the Magical Mystery Tour, and then went straight into Unsuccessfully Coping with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
fucking incredible show. What a show!
Yeah, it's probably my joint favorite Typo show I ever saw. Actually, yeah, they were really good. It was a good. And it's, they were all good lads, to be fair. Although I didn't know Josh that well, but yeah, the rest of them really nice.
Yeah, I agree. And just as a side comment, because you mentioned Johnny's drumming earlier, Johnny to me is one of those drummers where if you add him to a band, the band sounds better. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
He's got this natural, relaxed groove that he plays with.
Yeah.
He's another guy that you can see on his face really loves everything that he does. But especially with Danzig, like I've seen Danzig play with other drummers, and if you compare those shows to shows that he's with Johnny, there's no comparison. It's just something completely magical, by the way, Johnny.
Yeah, really nice fella as well. Really lovely fella as well. Yeah.
So, just touching again on Icon, I mean, when the album came out and the reviews were overwhelmingly positive, because I remember reading about it in Kerrang and Metal Hammer and everywhere else. It was genuinely an adored record. Were you guys surprised by how positive that was?
Yeah, surprised how positive. We knew it'd be positive because we felt confident with it. We felt we'd made a good record, but we had no idea of where it would take us. If you get my meaning, we knew we had a good record, and if people heard it, we thought people would like it. But then sometimes in those days it was down to if journalists wanted to push you or not. Especially in the UK press, there were some incredible journalists, and a lot of them are still very good friends. People like Malcolm, rest his soul, was a very good friend, Malcolm Dome, and Paul Elliott Gooner. It's like there's loads of great journalists from back then, but then there was also some that came later that were more into it was almost like tabloid in a way. They were always like, you're up here 1 minute and then next minute they're pushing you down, it's kind of thing. So that happens sometimes, but we were quite lucky that I think enough people decided that they liked it enough to sort of put it forward, and MTV picked up on it as well, which was really good. The Headbangers Ball were very supportive of us, and that helped a lot, I think. But the tour we did with Sepultura, their Chaos AD tour, our Icon tour, that was just such a good European tour. It was brilliant. I mean, they were on fire as well. I mean, I'd watch some of Sepultura pretty much every night because they were absolutely on fire on that tour. I mean, I literally thought Metallica level, you know what I mean? And they have got that sort of status, but maybe not the sales, but they have got like sort of that kudos, But they were sounded incredible on that tour. And then we went out on our own tour, which was brilliant, with Crowbar, the mighty Crowbar. They're still good friends with Kirk and that as well.
One of the best ever, in my opinion, as well. Like,
yeah, brilliant. And every night on that tour, I watched them play No Quarter, the cover, the Led Zeppelin cover they did. Because Sexy T on bass, his bass sound, he just had such a top low end on it. And Kirk's riffing, I mean, he's a legend, you know. Kirk's singing and riffing, you know, great guitar player. He's still a top lad as well. And I bumped into Sexy T was back in the band a bit a few years ago, so I bumped into them. They played at the Dome, so I managed to go and hang out with them for a bit as well. So yeah, but Crowbar was
that was real old school Crowbar too, because you know, like the bigger hits like Planets Collide. I mean, that only came out in the late 90s.
Yeah, it's the second album tour what they were doing at the time. But yeah, I mean, I completely fell in love with them on that tour. I was just like, this guy's got riffs for days. Do you know what I mean? He's a proper riffmeister. He's Kirk. He's a top lad.
He's a riffmeister, and when he opens his mouth, it's like, you know, you get the same vibe from a guy like Mark Lanegan, you know, different genre of music, like that life's worth of experience that just comes pouring out. But Kirk is like that in metal.
I get that. Yeah.
Now, I mentioned surprise at the reception when it came out. I guess now that you guys are celebrating the record and, you know, it's Icon 30, the other question around surprise is, are you surprised by the degree of connection that people still have to some of those old songs? Because, like, even when you guys put out the Widow single, there was some, like, some of the responses, you could really tell, like, people take, you know, Paradise Lost music incredibly personally. So, and it's for whatever reason, particularly that record.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. You just went glitchier then for a second.
So I don't know whether you caught that, but just what I was saying was,
I saw you said immense personal connection. I got that bit, and then it went glitchy.
Are you surprised by how personal people, you know, are still feel connected to songs that are 30 years old?
No, because I do the same thing with songs that I liked 30 years ago as well. You know, it's like I say, so I went to see Abigail. I lost. I mean, I'm a grown man, but I still lost my voice. Like singing along like a lunatic, drinking more beer than I should do, having a great night. You know, I think it doesn't surprise me, because I connect with music from my youth the same way. You know. So, no, but it's quite humbling to hear and see. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, it warms the heart. I'll say that. You know, I'm not surprised that people feel like that about songs, but you know, it's just, I don't know. I don't know the best way to put it. It's reaffirming that it's right to celebrate it, if you know what I mean. I mean, because the good thing is, like, when we did Draconian Times and we did the shows for Drac Times a few years ago, it was nice for us to connect with some of those songs that we haven't either really listened to or played live ever, some of them, or not played them for like 20 years, 30 years, you know. Going through Icon, did the same thing. There's so many songs on there we're like, oh, we should put this in the set, you know what I mean, and things like that. So it's nice for us to connect as a band as well, really. So no, yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I still, you know, I'll still get on a flight now and put on like Epicus Doomicus or Killing Technology or Jean-Michel Jarre or ELO, and it's all stuff that takes me to a place in my life, you know, while I'm reading a book or something. You know, read a book, put on. I prefer instrumental music when I'm reading, but yeah, so sort of like Kraftwerk or Jean-Michel Jarre or even something like Midlake. I love Midlake. Some of that's quite calming and that isn't too busy with words. It's you're losing your space in the book's world, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Whatever picture the book is painting, you don't want to get taken away from that. So I try to pick music that's sympathetic to it in a way, or at least doesn't detract from the experience.
Yeah. Last question, because I know we're at time. Obviously I've heard the Widow re-recording. was there a temptation, or is this going to be left to surprise? Was there a temptation when you guys were doing the re-recording to throw fans a couple of curveballs, have Greg chuck in one of his death metal vocal lines on one of the songs? Is there
do you know what? No, absolutely not. In fact, we've tried really hard to make it as faithful as possible, because people are so precious about things. And it was a thing where we don't own the rights to the record, so it costs us money to do it. But it was also like re-recording it. It was something we haven't done yet, really. Beyond a couple of songs, we did like a True Belief 97, stuff like that. We did a couple of songs where we've redone them. But it was kind of a new way to give people who might enjoy it something different. I mean, if people don't like it, there's still the old one. If people like both, perfect. There might be people who discover the band through just hearing the new one or seeing a video on YouTube or a review. So it might introduce people to the old ones. But if we decided we were going to try and do it first and then announce it, because we wanted to see if we were happy with it first. And we actually quite enjoyed it. And it was like, all right, well, yeah, let's give it the go ahead and do it. Because we didn't want to do it for the sake of it. But we wanted to give it the credence of being worthy to do. And we've actually really enjoyed going back through the songs and redoing them, really. It's been good fun. I'm looking forward to playing them. And I think when we play in December, we're also going to bring Sweetness from the Seals of Sense EP as well. I think we're putting that in the set. A lot of people have been asking that for that a long time. So, yeah, Sweetness is back in.
I am very much looking forward to seeing you. And I mean, stands to reason. I'm not just a fan of the band, but huge fan of Icon. So, but yeah, Aaron, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated it, and hopefully,
my absolute pleasure.
Catch up again at some point down the road.
Yeah, I hope so. It's nice to see you. I do remember you from before. Once I stopped you being 16 pixels by 16 pixels and zoomed in, I was like, oh, there he is. Right, okay. I never remember names. Sorry, Deirdre. But I never forget a face. I never forget faces. So.
Well, I didn't have glasses on last time, so I wouldn't blame you. But yeah, like I said, we catch each other again down the road.
Yeah, cool. You take care, Jackie, and I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope your daughter enjoys it as well.
She has to. I told her, there's no like. I asked her when I asked if she wants to come along, I was like, okay, just remember. There's no midway through the show saying I'm bored, I want to leave. We're staying till the end. So.
Well, tell her I promise I'll do my best to make it as good as possible for her. Okay.
I will definitely let her know. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, sir. You take care. Cheerio.
Bye bye.
That's a track called Widow, the updated 2023 version celebrating 30 years of Icon, one of the most seminal records in the Paradise Lost discography, and what a pleasure talking to Aaron as we went through all of that. And I know that I got stuck a bit on Shades of God. I did warn you guys at the beginning of the show, but that, to me, that's an album that is particularly special. If I'm very honest, maybe even more so than Icon, as much as I love that album. But yeah, what a great guy. Second time he's been on the show, it was fun talking to him the first time. Second time round, there was a bit more of a recognition there, and the conversation just flowed even more easily. So hopefully he'll be back on the show, and hopefully we can also get Nick Holmes on into the Necrosphere at some point in 2024. Let's talk now about some new releases, and first up we've got Bathed in a Black Sun by Strigoi. Originally recorded during the sessions for Strigoi's incredible sophomore album, Viscera, which true members of the Legion will recognize from my top 30 of 2022 list. The title track, Bathed in a Black Sun, is actually that particular release's 7th song, and in my opinion, one of its absolute best moments. It is a combination of eerie female vocals, depressive riffing, and Greg McIntosh continuing to prove to us that we were bereft for many, many years of his commanding death growls. I am still blown away by the idea that he only decided to start doing death metal vocals in his 50s, and he, in my opinion, is one of the best vocalists around. Bathed in a Black Sun is also, to me, a reminder of Viscera's brilliance, so if you haven't gone and listened to that album recently, then make sure that you do. It is a devastatingly effective slab of blackened death doom in its own right, and the remaining 4 tracks on the EP really hold their own too, in my opinion. They do play in different parts of the Strigoi spectrum. You've got crust punk on the track Beautiful Stigmata. You've got real OSDM vibes on the Grotesque. It is all over inside of 13 minutes, but trust me when I say it is a 13 minutes that you are going to want to experience repeatedly. Bathed in a Black Sun is now available on Season of Mist Records. As always, I will post a link to every single band's Bandcamp in the description to the podcast, so head over there and buy yourself some tunes and let him know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. Next up, we've got Gowanus Death Stomp by Gravesend. That was released on October the 27th by 20 Buck Spin. Last year, 20 Buck Spin released one of 2022's nastiest surprises with Daivas through sheer will and black magic. This year, they've done it again with Gowanus Death Stomp, Gravesend's follow-up to their 2021 debut, Methods of Human Disposal. Upping the black and death metal influences from that release to the new record has not only resulted in a lengthier effort overall. Gowanus Death Stomp clocks in at about 36 minutes versus its predecessor's 27, but it also offers more variation while retaining all of the violence, the filth, the grime, and the spite from the band's first outing. Highlights across that record's runtime is plentiful, but it is on songs like Even a Worm Will Turn and Crown of Tar where I feel that Gravesend's essence is best captured. It plays to me like the literal soundtrack to Western urban decay in 2023, and I absolutely cannot get enough of it. It is top notch. Next up, Suffocation have decided that there weren't enough death metal albums being released this year by top tier bands in the scene, and so they decided to drop one of their own. Hymns from the Apocrypha is Suffocation's 9th full-length album, and it is perhaps most notable for being the debut of new vocalist Ricky Myers, who replaces the mighty and some would say inimitable Frank Mullen. Fortunately, Ricky proves more than capable of holding his own. His style, while not a carbon copy of Frank Mullen's, isn't entirely dissimilar, and perhaps most important is his ability to inject the appropriate levels of aggression, enunciation, and just sheer badassery required to carry off songs like Perpetual Deception and Seraphim Enslavement. Similarly unquestionable is the rest of the band's dedication to their brand of chuggy, slamming death metal. In fact, after several listens, I would argue that this is maybe the most dialed in that Terence and the rest of the band have sounded pretty much since 2013's Pinnacle of Bedlam, which I know is high praise indeed if you're a longtime Suffocation fan. If you are a longtime Suffocation fan, then from my perspective, Hymns from the Apocrypha is going to sound to you like a welcome visit from an old friend. For everybody else, the album should prove that not only do Suffocation still kick plenty of ass, but they remain very much amongst the elite of the elite in an increasingly crowded and an increasingly talented death metal scene. Hymns from the Apocrypha is out right now on Nuclear Blast Records. Finally, for this week anyway, we have Last Day of the Sun by Fuming Mouth. It was released in the shadow of vocalist Mark Whelan's hard-fought victory over leukemia. The album's opening track, Out of Time, sets the tone for what is to follow with a barrage of vintage Swedish death metal riffing married perfectly to crust punk and hardcore nastiness. That's not exactly an uncommon blend of influences, but the magic with Fuming Mouth lies in Fuming Mouth's execution, Kurt Ballew's absolutely sensational production job, and Mark Whelan's breathtaking delivery. While the record's overall theme doesn't draw directly from his experience of battling cancer, there's no avoiding that it is almost certainly ratcheted up the emotion and the urgency of every single line that he screams over the course of the album's 12 tracks. He also happens to be very capable at pulling off a clean-sung chorus, which he does to great aplomb on the song The Silence Beyond Life. Now, I have to say, because you guys will have heard me react to that song on the news rant a couple of weeks ago, it took a while to grow on me, but after a few listens and within the context of the whole album, it almost certainly did. And as a matter of fact, what really hooked me back into wanting to hear the record is the song I'm going to play for you right now. This is a single that I think absolutely captures everything that's great about the band. The song is called I'll Find You.
Into
Taken from the album Last Day of the Sun, the band, of course, Fuming Mouth. The song is I'll Find You. Absolutely sensational and available right now on Nuclear Blast Records. Check them out and let them know who sent you on Bandcamp if you buy yourself any music. I am in the process of getting an interview set up with Mark Whelan of Fuming Mouth. I think having come back from leukemia the way that he did and turning in a record like this is fucking awesome. And I, for one, am very excited to have him share his story on the show. Right now, my friends, if you think that viral TikTok sensation Scene Queen is real metal, then it might be time for you to get to stepping, because this is the weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
Okay, friends, first up on metalstorm.net, I mentioned at the top of the show that we would be listening to a new Ministry single on the news rant. I say listening, I mean subjecting, because whether it's praising Antifa, sampling Greta Thunberg, or just generally producing music that is an insult to their legacy and to the intelligence of longtime fans, Ministry will apparently not rest until they have taken a flamethrower to every last remaining shred of their legacy. They now continue along that path by voicing their support for the vacuous imbeciles and the serial portrait defacers known as Just Stop Oil. So let's listen. I'm just going to stop for 10 seconds there. That lyric, time is a factor, we're all on the tractor. It absolutely reminds me of Flight of the Conchords. And if someone had, and if it were Flight of the Conchords, you would laugh and you'd say, that Brett and Jermaine did a really funny spoof of a Ministry-style song, and they managed to rhyme the word factor with tractor, ha, ha, ha. And then tragically, the logo and Al's inimitable vocals remind you that this is actually the same band that recorded an album that was as dark and as provocative as Filth Pig, or who had something truly interesting to say with Psalm 69. And then you weep into your sleeve and you do what we're about to do, and you carry on listening to see if there is anything that could possibly vindicate what we have heard so far in the first 42 seconds of this song. By the way, for anybody who gives a fuck, this is taken off the upcoming Ministry record, Hopium for the Masses. It's going to be due out on March the 1st, 2024. I will be giving it a miss without a shadow of a doubt because, I mentioned Filth Pig, I mentioned Psalm 69, but even when you think about Lard, Palehead, the early Revolting Cox records, if you compare that to the steaming pile of elephant dung we had just heard, even if you somehow manage to get past the fact that Al's sole source of lyrical inspiration nowadays is the Xanax-addled tweets of the internet's wokest 34-year-olds who still live with their parents, are still financed by their parents, and hate their parents for being capitalists. The music itself is really as cutting-edge and dangerous as an Ariana Grande song. It is truly sad. I think, as I've said before, Ministry should have stuck by their word, and they should have called it a day after The Last Sucker. That album wasn't perfect, but it was a unassailable masterpiece compared to the car crash that we just heard. Both thumbs down. That is absolutely atrocious. Okay, hopefully a bit of a palate cleanser. Insomnium have revealed Stained in Red visualizer video. It says here, Insomnium's new EP, Songs of the Dusk, is officially out. To celebrate its release, the 5-piece are premiering a visualizer video for the song Stained in Red. Let's give it a listen. So this song follows up, or this EP, I should say, follows up their record they put out earlier this year called Anno 1696. That came out in February. They don't mention it in this article because the Metal Storm writers have become, or the Metal Storm staff have become pretty lazy over the last couple of months. I say that as I blatantly use them as the source material for the vast majority of an entire segment, but anyway. I have read that the band are referring to this EP as director's cut material that supplements the full-length album. So I think that's quite a cool idea. I really enjoyed Anno 1696, which, is, firstly, it's unsurprising, therefore, that I would like the song, but secondly, this is usually not my style of melodic death metal. I generally don't like melodic death metal, as many of you should know if you listen to the news rant. But for whatever reason, I just think Insomnium seem to be able to execute a style of music I wouldn't ordinarily listen to really, really well. They do deviate from the typical mellow death blueprint in that the fact that, first of all, even though they're polished and they have the memorable melodies, they're not literally taking death metal vocals and adding it to Iron Maiden-esque riffing, which that to me is already a plus. But I think what makes them so good, and we'll listen to more of the song in just a second, but what makes them so good is they have this very, I would say, advanced grasp of melody. Like they I don't know whether they have any education in music, but they definitely seem to have a more well-rounded, maybe a broader understanding of melody, or maybe a broader palette that they draw from when they write melodies. So even though they're going into the same type of music or the same style of music, what they're working with as a palette is a lot broader, if that makes sense. I don't want to ramble on here, but I think you guys know what I'm driving at. I think what I've heard so far is typical of them. They've got these very complex, very dynamic melodies, and what I love is they always take the song in a direction that you're not expecting it to go. So again, I get that folks might listen to it and go, well, it's too polished, it's too clean, it's too nice for me. But I've never heard an Insomnium record that I haven't thought was good. As much as I balk at the idea of melodic death metal, generally speaking, almost as a rule of thumb. Anyway, let's get back to it. So I just had a gander at who did this visualizer for them. It's a group called the Door Brothers that do AI visuals. I have to say, I really, really like that visualizer. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see what I mean. It's got kind of, would the word be surrealistic imagery of like a woman turning into a wolf? There's loads of wolves on it, but it looks very, very cool. I know people have their views on AI imagery and AI in art generally, but when it looks that good, they could have summoned it by a voodoo ritual for all I care. I just think it works. I like the production on this as well. It's nice and clean and crisp. It doesn't sound too overly compressed. As I'm listening to this, I kind of feel like with this song, Insomnium make a pretty strong case, as they've probably done with their last couple of records, for filling in the gap for folks who have turned away from Opeth after Michael Ackerfeld decided that he was going to turn it into a King Crimson tribute act. They're not quite as progressive, but there's definitely elements here where I could say if you were into, any Opeth record, really, like, whether it's Blackwater Park or whatever, like there's stuff here that you're really going to like. Which, again, I'm pretty sure is the case already, but just thought I would mention. So, yeah, big thumbs up from me for this new Insomnium track, and I will definitely give the whole EP a listen. Okay, next up, King out of Australia have put out a new song. It's called Perception Ignited. It says here it's the newly released preview tune from the group's forthcoming album, Fury and Death. That's going to be released on November the 17th. It's out on Soul Cellar Records, and we're going to give it a spin. One thing that's not mentioned by this very abbreviated press statement is that King actually feature the work of some seriously pedigreed members in their ranks, including Dave Haley of Werewolves, The Amenta, Runes, and Psychroptic. And he is absolutely killing it behind the drum kit on this song. You can definitely overall hear a lot of that experience and a lot of the pedigree coming through as pretty much as soon as the song starts. There's something about that main riff that to me it's familiar in almost like a comforting way, but at the same time, as soon as those vocals kick in, the song really kind of goes up a couple of gears. So very, very much enjoying what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah.
You can absolutely pick out some of the influences here. Like I can hear Emperor, I can hear Immortal, I can hear early Borgnagar, like Olden Domain era Borgnagar. You can even hear a whiff of In Times Before the Light by the Covenant, back when they were calling themselves just plain old Covenant and not sucking. But, it's like with every other upper tier Australian band that I have praised to the hilt on the News Rant. Whatever they're doing, there's always something in the execution that is just slightly off axis in the best possible way. And, regardless of the style they're playing, it always comes out just a slight bit different to what you would have gotten from, maybe even almost note for note the same song from a UK, a US, or a European-based band. I absolutely love it. This is the first track I've heard of the album. It is definitely proving my point that you need to wait. If you intend on taking your albums of the year list seriously, you need to wait until December the 31st before you start compiling it. And folks can remember that when the Decibel Top 40 of 2023 drops in what I'm going to forecast is about 2 weeks. And I get it. They make a living off of that site, and probably the best of 2023 or best album of the year lists generate as many clicks and as much revenue as the 3 months worth of crack journalism about where James Hetfield has found a pimple today will have generated. But for me and the Legion, we go a different way. And I said last week, I think it was last week that I said we're going to do 3 episodes next year for best of 2023. First one will feature Nathan Glover of Gravesend. He always has a bunch of interesting records to recommend. Next one we'll do with my bro Dave Berardi and my bros Dave Berardi and Carl Hikara. And then the next one we'll do with Mike Hill, hopefully. So that's the tentative plan right now. But anyway, thumbs up for me on this one. And I mean, this genuinely sounds good enough that it would be a record I could long list for top 30 of 2023. If the rest of the album sounds like this, it is without a doubt something that's going to require plenty of my attention. And it will get plenty of my attention when I am sunning myself in South Africa. Okay, let's move on to the next track, friends. Exocrine have announced a new album. It says here, Exocrine, a tech prog death metal formation, are excited to share details and the first single in connection with their next studio record release, titled Legend. It will see the light on January the 6th, 2024 via Season of Mist. The group's lead guitarist, Sylvain Octo Perez, handled the mix and mastering of all tracks. Nice album artwork. I feel like nowadays not a lot is said about cover art because I think partly people aren't really buying music anymore, so they don't appreciate it as much as they did. And there's just so much good stuff coming out. It's almost table stakes that, generally speaking, a band is going to have a cool looking cover. But I have to point out to anybody not watching this on YouTube, go check it out. It's a really, really beautiful painting. Deserves a mention. That being said, let's listen to what the music sounds like. Now, I know for a fact that Exocrine's last, I think 3 records were put out by Unique Leader, so the business brain in me listens to this and goes, Season of Mist signed them up because they want some more of that Arcspire type sweet cheddar. So obviously Oxspire did really well for them commercially and critically. So it's a smart business move of them to sign up another band that sounds a little like Oxspire, or at the very least dabbles in Oxspire's game. But anyway, as far as the music is concerned, I actually think this appeals to me a little bit more, at least at first listen, than Oxspire. I don't mind that band. Obviously both are hyper technical. Both love them a blast beat, but Exocrine, seem to kind of be a little bit more grounded in serving the song with every element that I've heard on this, on the first minute 14 seconds of this so far. Whereas I think Oxspire sometimes feels like they really have to consciously rein themselves in, like they can play their instruments exceedingly well. They love showing that off. Sometimes we don't necessarily always need to be reminded of it as often as they do, if you know what I mean. Also, one thing to point out in that chorus, there is a definite tip of the hat to Gojira, which maybe is, shouldn't come as a surprise because Exocrine is from France as well. And of course, when I say Gojira, I mean from Mars to Sirius Gojira, aka not shit Gojira. That little break was really cool as well. I don't know whether that was I think that was a trumpet. I may be corrected here, and somebody says it's a saxophone. It sounds like a trumpet, but it sounds cool. The only thing I'd say is, if I was being very nitpicky, it maybe exposes a little bit that the mix of the song could be a slight tad more balanced. I think because of how layered the song is, it feels a bit compressed. Like I was saying earlier about Insomnium not feeling compressed, this to me feels the exact opposite. At least that's the way that it's coming through on these cans. But overall, a big thumbs up for me. I really like this, and absolutely will be looking forward to listening to it when it comes out January the 26th on Season of Mist. There seems to be something in the cosmos about January 26th, because there's a fucking 1,001 bands putting out records that day. But anyway, it'd be a nice way to, I guess, come down from the joys of, or at least for me personally, from the joys of having 4 weeks of not working, to returning to the fucking cold and misery of the United Kingdom and a 10-hour workday. Anyway, this is probably as good a segue as any to check out a single by Vitriol. So quite a few members of the Legion had messaged me over the weekend and said, this new single by Vitriol, The Flowers of Sadism, is absolutely killer. Sure enough, the album comes out on January the 26th as well. The album is going to be called Suffer and Become. I've been saving this specifically to listen to it on the news rant, so here goes. The last Vitriol record was an album called To Bathe from the Throat of Cowardice, and I really enjoyed that. It came out in 2019. I found it at times physically exhausting to listen to because, I mean, these guys really sound like they're so intent on being pissed off sometimes that, like, that record suffered, not a lot, but sometimes it could feel like it was a little bit unfocused. It's like the goal is to be so brutal and so heavy that sometimes they lose a little bit of that extra venom, which I'm frankly hearing a lot more of here. I know it's probably way too early to make a judgment, but it definitely sounds like that element, that focus, has been addressed, at least for this song, and hopefully it continues through on the upcoming album. But the first 1 minute 21 seconds of this is pretty goddamn fantastic. Like, I would say inching towards receiving a top-notch accolade. I quite like that solo has almost an early 90s death metal vibe to it. Like a lot of those early 90s death metal solos, they had this really unhinged, just crazy, almost, anti-musical vibe to them. And it was just phenomenal. You can definitely hear it in there. The song is very layered. Like, I can hear at some point at least one or two of the folks responsible for writing the song enjoyed themselves a record or two by Behemoth. Again, probably Prime Behemoth rather than Jesus Christ Behemoth. And also, it'd be interesting to get them on the podcast and ask them about this, but I hear a little bit of Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza, particularly their Danza for the Alpha and Omega record. There's just something to the riffing style. There's something here that reminds me of that album. And again, not a bad thing because I thought that record is great. There's a real grit and a griminess to the song overall, and I absolutely love that. Like, there is zero subtlety at all. It basically makes it clear from the very first second that it's going to melt your face, and it then proceeds to do so. I think it's good music for lifting too, if you're that way inclined. And of course, if you do lift, then according to the intellectual giants over at The Guardian, you have already confirmed that you are in fact a far-right white supremacist and an upholder of toxic masculinity. But anyway, thumbs up. And actually, let's call it what it is. Top-notch for the folks over at Vitriol. Okay, let's move on. There is a Amenta video, but we're not going to listen to that now. All I would say is that Amenta EP is absolutely sensational, and I am going to try and get them on the podcast before the end of the year. So hold on to your shit, because that's going to be coming hopefully before my last episode. And my last episode, just to remind all of you, is going to be December the 5th, and then I'll be back probably second week of January, so like January the 15th. But next year is going to be an exciting one. I'm going to be involved in Fortress Festival, as I was with Reaper Festival this year. I saw that Gary has already been announcing some really, really killer bands. Ultha are going to be back. Wolves in the Throne Room are there. I'm trying to think who else. Gairia are there. Trying to think who else is going to be showing up to their event. But either way, I'm going to be able to meet a couple of people in person. Actually, that reminds me, Thomas Gabriel Fisher is going to be there, as well as Triptychon. Now, I'm very excited about seeing Triptychon play live, but I think I may need to give an in-person with Tom a skip. We'll see. Maybe I'll do it, and then right at the end of the video, I'll say, "Hey, by the way, you blocked me for eating meat, for posting pictures of meat on social media." Okay, Cognizance announced that they are, as of now, a part of Willowtip Records. It says here, hailing from Leeds and featuring members of Obscura death metal quintet, Cognizance are pleased to announce that they've joined forces with Willowtip Records for the release of their third full-length installment. Dubbed Fantazine, it's going to be released on, wouldn't you know it, January the 26th, 2024. It's produced by Alex Bailey and Apostolos Karidis, mix and master, blah, blah, names that we don't give a shit about. They do have a first single called The Towering Monument, which we'll give a quick listen to now. There's something about the groove on this song that reminds me a little bit of a Canadian band called Beneath the Massacre. Particularly a song called, I want to just have a quick gander at their song titles, Nevermore. I remember seeing them play that live and just being absolutely blown away by it. I mean, it helped that the vocalist was just such a fucking hulking beast of a man and such a presence on stage. He really carried it off well. But yeah, that's really, really good. I don't really know Cognizance all that well. I see they've put out 3 records so far and they've been pretty busy. So they've got a record called Malignant Dominion that came out in 2019, Upheaval that came out in 2021. Both of those were, Upheaval was Prosthetic Records, actually as was Malignant Dominion. This one obviously Willowtip Records, but I will definitely dig into the early catalog. This is almost a similar kind of thing to Vitriol, maybe obviously a little less insane, but it's vicious. And I really like they have these chaotic riffs, and a lot of this, like the drumming is, all over the place. The vocals are brutal and unhinged, but they've got these very simple melodic lines that they kind of leave lingering beneath the surface throughout the song. And I just think that works exceptionally well. It really elevates it. It doesn't take away from the fact that the song is really aggressive and really spicy. But I'm thinking this is another one to absolutely put on the list of albums to look forward to in January next year. Exactly, that is what I mean. That melody that's kind of just under the surface while the song is carrying on. It's just fucking absolutely brilliant. I literally love everything about this. Vocals, performances, production, song, every single thing. This is very deserving of yet another top notch today. Fantastic stuff. Okay, next up, we have got Cloak, who reveal the cover, or their cover, of Sam Hain's song Black Dream. It says here, Atlanta, Georgia 4-piece Cloak are pleased to present their rendition of the Sam Hain classic Black Dream. The latter was originally released on Sam Hain's debut album Initium, which dropped back in 1984. Really, I should have included this on last week's episode of the podcast, but I had already edited and put everything together by the time that I knew they were putting this song out. That being said, I am very much looking forward to hearing what it sounds like. I think my view on Sam Hain is now well stated over the course of the last 2 episodes, and obviously you guys know I'm a big fan of Cloak as well. So let's hear what Black Dream sounds like. Just discounting for a second that I know Scott Taysom from Cloak. He's been on the podcast a couple of times. I know he's a massive fan of Danzig. Even if I didn't know that, I think the love of the source material in this cover so far would, it comes screaming out at you. It sticks pretty close to the original, but there's enough tweaks in there to distinguish it. And I particularly love what they've done with the chorus and those layered vocal tracks. Like, for me, you can see this becoming a staple of Cloak's live set in the way that Am I Evil was, something that Metallica used to do, almost as standard on every single show. And to me, that's a very, very good thing. So, yeah, I'm loving this so far. Let's get back to it. Two things. One, I am incredibly glad that, I'm very happy for them, I should say, that Black Flame Eternal, the last Cloak record, is, really seems to be helping that band pick up steam. I think that album is strong enough whereby this really should be a step up for them. Like, I know they put on a great show. They really deserve to be in the upper tiers of bands in this scene, I think, from a profile perspective, and as a draw. I love the cover. Also, just as a side note, and this is my second point, I will continue my campaign of nagging Mike Hill about a full Sam Hain tribute, as I have pleaded and requested many times until he finally relents and does it. Until then, more Sam Hain love from anybody is, or I should say almost anybody, is always welcome. But yeah, great work by the folks in Cloak. What I want to hear next is somebody doing November's Fire as a cover, because I think that song is a masterpiece, and I think more people need to be aware of it. All right, Skeletal Remains are putting out their 5th studio album. It says here, March the 8th, 2024. We're really going against type with the vast majority of the rest of the metal scene. We'll see the release of Skeletal Remains' 5th studio album titled Fragments of the Ageless. As a first single, the death metalers are revealing Void of Despair, which is being accompanied by a gloomy video directed by Dylan Vaughan. I obviously don't know the Skeletal Remains men personally, but I would say that if I had to place a bet, I'd say they spent the vast majority of their teenage years listening, or dedicated to listening almost exclusively to Deicide, Morbid Angel, and Pestilence, and that's not a bad thing. I think if it helps spawn songs like this, it is actually a very, very good thing. And aside from the fact that I've mentioned the influences, that groove on the song is just absolutely filthy. The actual riff slays as well. It's technical, but it has a really nasty hook to it. I think Chris Bonroy's vocals are just absolutely fucking beastly. I know that these guys are about to hit the road with Incantation and Suffocation. That is definitely going to be a hell of a bill. And Skeletal Remains are, based on what I've heard here, the kind of band where if the rest of their material and their performance can match up to this song's quality, they're definitely the sort of band that you are not going to want to follow every night, I would say. But anyway, let's get back to it. It's another top notch, I think. Really, really excellent. I love the vocals. I love the entire song, the whole vibe, the changes to the grooves and the rhythm. It is sensational. And I like the video too. The video is definitely scarier than Saw X, which I subjected myself to this past weekend. And it was complete and utter trash. I don't know whether anybody has seen it. I'm a big fan of the first Saw movie. I like the second one. I treat the third and fourth as guilty pleasures. The rest, obviously, I completely ignore because it's rubbish. But Saw X, what a load of shit. When I heard they were going to spend more time focused on the John Kramer character, and that Tobin Bell would actually get an opportunity to feature more, I thought, okay, this could be pretty interesting. But to use a wrestling term, they turned him into a babyface, and that is just a complete disaster because he's not. Turning him into a babyface kind of just turns him into a bit of a cartoon character. And I mean, the movie had some reasonably decent gory bits in it, but just for the most part, I thought it was complete shit. So my expert rating on Saw X would be 2 out of 10, and that's being generous. It is. I'll give it this. It's better than The Creator, which I saw a while back. That was minus 50 out of 10. It is also better than the Candyman remake. And it's better than Spiral, which was that previous From the Book of Saw movie, also complete and utter nonsense. But what I did also see this week was The Exorcist on the big screen. I will, of course, never, ever subject myself willingly to Exorcist Believer, but I did see The Exorcist for the probably at least 60th or 70th time. It's its 50th anniversary. Great to see it on the big screen as well. And also interesting to see how an audience there were some relatively young people in it because we drove to Oxford, which is, a student town. It was interesting to see that folks who were maybe seeing it for the first time can still be completely stunned to silence by the last hour or so of the film. But yeah, what a masterpiece in stark contrast to Saw X. Okay, we're going to do one more song, and then we'll head over to We Are the Pit. But it says here, Witherfall have launched a new single for a song called Insidious. It says here, Los Angeles-based dark melodic metal outfit Witherfall have premiered their newest musical endeavor, Insidious. The song marks the band's first new music since the Curse of Autumn album, which was released in 2020. With Insidious, the band open up a fresh chapter and offer a first glimpse of what to expect from their upcoming fourth studio album, tentatively due in early 2024. So it says here, after a crazy writing and recording spree that had us crisscrossing the US and working in 5 different states, we present to you perhaps the most involved Witherfall production to date. Insidious is the first single from our 4th full-length album. The song was birthed at 4 in the morning under a foggy full moon, in a stream of consciousness with the central theme and musical landscape written and improvised in a single take. The contrasting consonance and dissonance in the composition takes listeners on a descent into madness. The song was recorded with all analog instruments and was co-produced by Zeus. The video produced by both Bradley Cooper, I'm assuming not the actor Bradley Cooper, and Sig Neutron represents the pervasive malaise and general sense of division in our current culture. We wish we could say no puppets were harmed during the making of this video. I am very much liking what I'm hearing so far. And fun fact, Joseph Michael, who's the Witherfall singer, he actually stepped in for Warrell Dane in Sanctuary after that absolute legend passed away. And it's easy to see why they may have selected him from this song. I mean, even though he's kind of switching here between screaming and clean vocals, both vocal styles really, really hit the mark. And actually, I would say when those clean vocals kick in on the chorus, when he's going Insidious, whatever he sings after that, I'm too old to remember off the top of my head, or to remember that far back. I mean, that really is bang on the money. I mean, that chorus is catchier than a case of crabs. And the rest of the song is pretty spectacular too. I mean, it reminds me in a way of what Nevermore might have sounded like if they incorporated more black metal into their sound. But it's kind of unique in its own way too. So yeah, really like it so far. Let's get back to it. Really liking the atmosphere when that acoustic guitar kicks in. And when I look at the music video, I would say, aside from the very buxom young lady who's working the stripper pole, they seem, with some of the imagery and some of the words they keep flashing on the screen, to be touching on Gavin Newsom's vision for America, which wouldn't surprise me given where they live, or given where Metal Archive says they're based out of. And that actually makes me think that perhaps I need to get Joseph Michael on the podcast. That could be quite an interesting conversation. But yeah, I love it. I think this is going to be the third top notch for the day. Although, in all honesty, the majority of what I've listened to today so far has been top notch. Yeah, really, really good week for good new music. Okay, we're going to finish off by going to We Are the Pit. So the first news headline on We Are the Pit is that Dave Mustaine once claimed to heal a fan from cancer. Let's have a quick gander at what it says here. I'm just skipping down to the middle part of the article. It says, in a 2011 feature on his most prized possessions, the Megadeth main man told Spin magazine, "I met a fan in Kentucky who had throat cancer. He was only supposed to live a few weeks. For some reason, I reached out, grabbed his throat, and started praying for the dude. He lived long enough to give me this on our next tour. It's signed by the governor and says, I'm an honorary Kentucky colonel. As far as I know, it's the real deal." It says Mustaine's born-again Christian faith has been a cornerstone of the guitarist's life for quite some time now, providing him the sense of strength and guidance through dark times and good. That being said, when it comes to his own throat cancer diagnosis almost a decade later, he was sure to credit good nutrition and medical science for his years of remission. I mean, Dave Mustaine really is the Steven Seagal of metal, if we're very honest with ourselves now. He's not only one of the greatest and deadliest martial artists never to compete in an actual fight, but he's now also not only a talented guitarist and a healer and vessel for the Holy Spirit. The best thing about all this, of course, is that we don't need to try and figure any of these facts out for ourselves, because Dave will readily remind us of this at every single opportunity, along with talking for ages about how he no longer wants to talk about Metallica. Anyway, let's move on. Why Kerry King and the Beastie Boys hated each other after No Sleep Till Brooklyn. It says here, blah, blah, blah. This collaboration didn't exactly result in a lifelong friendship. Rick Rubin, the legendary producer and co-founder of Def Jam, shed light on the behind-the-scenes dynamics in an interview with Rolling Stone. He pointed out that despite the logic behind the partnership, there was a distinct lack of enthusiasm from Kerry King towards the Beastie Boys, and this sentiment was mutual. Kerry King was from Slayer, did the guitar solo. I don't think he really liked the song. I think he thought it was bizarre. The producer continued, he's a real serious metalhead. He really loves metal, and I don't think he listens to much music outside of metal. At least then he didn't. I don't think it spoke to his aesthetic. Some personalities are just like oil and water, which the producer picked up a little too late. And honestly, in retrospect, I don't think he really spoke to the Beasties' aesthetic. They didn't like him either. It was kind of mutual. I mean, he doesn't like anybody, so I don't know why folks would be surprised. The one time that I met him, he was a pretty surly dude. I must admit. Like, I met Jeff Hanneman, I met Kerry King, and I met Tom Araya on the same day, and I thought Tom was an incredibly nice guy. Jeff, I thought was and I hate to speak ill of the dead, but I thought he was a dick. And Kerry, I also thought was a dick. So. And I mean, again, I get it. It was a meet and greet. I was one in a long line of people, all goggly-eyed. I think it was 21 years or 22 years old. It's all goggly-eyed, going on about how much I love the band. So they're not exactly going to go, "Wow, that's such great insight. Let's be mates." So, okay, we're going to wrap it up on this one. The 10 heaviest albums of all time. Now, there have been some questionable decisions when it comes to these 10 best lists that We Are the Pit put out, but it makes for some good conversation. So it says here, when it comes to the music we celebrate, the word heavy gets thrown around a lot. It's a designation that is nearly impossible to quantify, but we here at the Pit enjoy a good Sisyphean exercise in masochism. So here goes the 10 heaviest albums of all time. I'm assuming this is in no certain order. So it says Pantera, The Great Southern Trendkill, Electric Wizard, Dope Throne, Godflesh, Street Cleaner, Sleep, Dope Smoker, Neurosis through Silver in Blood, Swans, Cop, Meshuggah, Chaosphere, I Hate God, Dopesick, Crowbar, Oddfellows Rest, and Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. I've got to say, I mean, they are absolutely correct in that not every, you can't quantify heaviness. Like, you can call, I think it's very subjective, but, maybe you can say, well, a Cannibal Corpse record isn't necessarily heavy, it's brutal. I don't know. I don't know I'm not sure how they are defining this, but I would question some of these inclusions. I mean, they're all great records, but in terms of heaviness, I mean, maybe when Master of Reality came out, it was really heavy, but I mean, I don't regard it as if we were going to say the heaviest albums of all time, I wouldn't say it's even in the conversation. And Oddfellows Rest, one of my favorite albums of all time. I'd say Crowbar put out, way heavier records, including Broken Glass, but even The Great Southern Trendkill by Pantera. I mean, you've got Floods, which is a ballad, a full bore ballad, and then you've got Tens, which is reasonably mellow. You've got Suicide Note Part 1, which is just all acoustic. So if you're going to go with heavy by Pantera, I mean, surely Far Beyond Driven gets the look in before Great Southern Trendkill. But not knowing the definition that We Are the Pit have used here, I will share 6 of the best of my own. And so here goes in no certain order. First of all, Absent in Body, Plague God. And this album is ignored by a disconcerting number of people due to the fact that Scott Kelly admitted to basically being a complete scumbag after the album was released. But if you go back and listen to it, I mean, it is just one of the darkest and most oppressive things I've ever heard in my entire life. It is such a shame that we're most likely never going to hear anything else by them again, but Scott Kelly is Scott Kelly. He's a douche, but at the same time, he was not the only man to participate in the making of the record. And so, from my perspective, I will still listen to it and love it with every single second of it. Next, a complete and utter disgrace that it wasn't included on this list: Effigy of the Forgotten by Suffocation. And then straight after, hot on his heels, Dying Fetus, Purification Through Violence. That was, of course, the first Dying Fetus record. I remember hearing it for the first time and just being completely and utterly blown away that anything could be so completely fucking utterly violent and unhinged and crazy. It was just crushing. It was a punishing record. Next up, I would throw into that list, just so we don't stay purely with death metal, I would throw in the Codex Necro by Anel Nathrak. If you go and listen to a song like Submission is for the Weak, I mean, it is, I know it's chaotic and it's crazy, but it is a fucking brutally heavy album and just stunning. One of the best things Anel Nathrak ever did. I would say when it comes to their discography, it would be a tie between the Codex Necro and In the Constellation of the Black Widow, because when that song starts, I mean, it's just grim. Next up, I will actually say something nice about Ministry, and I'd say you would have to put Ministry Psalm 69 on that list, because let's ignore anything that is kind of post Filth Pig, but when that album came out, it didn't just take industrial to a different place, but I mean, they were the first band to use as many guitar layers, at least as far as I know, as many layered guitars as they were using on that record. The whole thing is it's just like fucking listening to concrete being poured out of a speaker. And then the final one that I'll put on my list is Napalm Death, Utopia Banished. I mean, again, you could make a case for quite a few Napalm Death records. I'd say you could chuck in Enemy of the Music Business. I mean, you could argue, and some people will disagree with me on this, but you can argue that Fear, Emptiness, Despair was an incredibly heavy album, but Utopia Banished, especially as I've been going through the Napalm Death records for the stuff I did with Joe Denby over at Nightmare Cabin, Utopia Banished is just fucking unhinged. I mean, it's like, I think you need to thoroughly appreciate some of those songs. You need to see them live, but when you do, I mean, it's like you're in the middle of a fucking full-scale 100,000 person riot. It is just astounding. And if you haven't listened to Utopia Banished or really any of those records recently, then you need to do yourself a favor and go back and check it out. But folks, on that note, I am going to wrap it up for this week. And with that, my friends, episode 203 of Into the Necrosphere is officially in the books. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did recording it. I'll be back next week. Guest to be announced, but I think it's going to be Mark Whelan of Fuming Mouth if all goes to plan. That is going to be a hell of an episode, so make sure you don't miss it. Until then, whatever it is that you're doing, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.